Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I'm ready to do my full review on this sucker. This is, of course, the Protech Magic Whiskers. It has been loaned to me for review by my buddy Kyle. Pardon me, I just drank a lot of yerba mate. I'm going to drink some more right after I finish this. This was loaned to me by Kyle, aka DTOM Knives and Gear, and he has become one of my best knife buddies at this point. I will link to his channel down below. Kyle is awesome. If you like what I do, you're going to like what he does. He reviews a lot of knives, and he's reviewed some of mine. We send knives back and forth quite a bit, and this is one that he knew I was really intrigued to check out, and so I appreciate him sending it over to me. We've both kind of been on a bit of a Protech kick lately, which is funny because Protechs have a way of kicking. But yeah, we've both gone through quite a few recently, and we're both just really enjoying the brand. This one, no different. I quite like this knife. So let's talk about this knife a little bit philosophically, what is unique about it, and then we'll talk about materials, and we'll talk about what my experience has been with it. So first things first, the Protech Magic Whiskers is a magical knife. The shining feature of this knife is the method of deployment, because as you can see, this is an out-the-side auto, just like most Protechs are. But most Protech out-the-side autos use a press button, and there is no button anywhere on here. The button isn't on the clip side, the button isn't on the spine, it's not hidden down here on the butt of the knife, it's just seemingly nowhere to be found. If you are already familiar with this knife, this is going to come as no surprise to you, but the way that this works, focus, is, come on. The way that this works is this bolster, which you can see has a different texture, there's a couple screws going into it, is actually a sliding bolster. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this bolster, and boom, that deploys the knife. So the way to close the knife is just the same way. You want to pull that bolster. Sorry, it's really hard to do in front of the camera like that. You push the bolster to the side again and go ahead and fold it back shut. So what's really cool is with this knife, you can kind of have like a little bit of a sleight of hand thing going on where you can just open it and make it look easy, and then you can go ahead and close it, and then you hand it to somebody who's not familiar with this knife, and you watch their bewilderment increase over time as they are unable to figure out how to open it. And to me, that's fun. There's always something inherently cool about, I know something you don't know. You know, like, it's just enjoyable, at least for me. So I have enjoyed every time that I've carried this and I've been around somebody who's, it's not like in my personal life there are other people around me who are as into knives as I am. I have some knife buddies that I meet up with every now and then, but if I see like my brothers or my dad or a brother-in-law or just a buddy who's appreciates knives but isn't into them like I am, I love to hand this to people who don't know how it works, and then just observe as they can't figure it out. It's so funny and fun to me, and there's something that happens as well when they reach that point of frustration, they can't do it, and they admit, and they'll let you show them how to do it, and then they figure it out, and then you have that like shared experience of like, oh, now we both get the trick. There's just something fun about it. It's literally like, it's like watching a magic trick unfold and then learning how to do the trick, and then you're in on the secret, and it's fun in that way. Not that this is a literal magic trick, because everyone on YouTube who's made a video about this knife and everyone who's owned it, who's showed it to somebody else, has eventually taught them how to do it, and it's not like this big, well-kept secret. But that's why it's called the Magic Whiskers, at least as far as I observe. I haven't confirmed that with Protech, but if I had to guess. So the deployment method is certainly the shining feature of this knife. It's what makes it unique. It's what makes it special compared to all of the other Protechs, and frankly, compared to all of the other knives that I've ever experienced out on the market. This is the only one that opens like that, and so it feels different and fun. One thing I will say, right now, as of this moment, in my possession, I actually only have one other Protech here, because I sent out my SNG today to the new owner. And my Malibu is actually with Kyle, but that's a manual one anyways. So I have a Godson here. Why did my voice just crack? I have a Godson here. And the Godson, if I do like deploy them side by side, the Godson does hit harder than this one does. I don't know if that's because of the way this action functions or if it's just a different spring rate in this one or something, but I have experienced slightly snappier Protechs. I know that on some models Protech chooses to not have them be the hardest hitting knife possible, and there's probably fair reasoning for that. But having held a couple of Protechs in close succession recently, I have noticed that this one isn't quite as hard hitting as the others. And it can't be that this blade is lighter, because the Godson has a really light blade too. I don't know, not sure what it is. Not that this doesn't hit hard. Compared to many autos that exist, this hits harder. But compared to some of the other Protechs, even the SMG that I just sent out, that hit harder as well. So I don't know what that is, but still super fast, reliable deployment, and still a lot of fun to play with. Now, let's talk about materials, and then we'll talk about what my experience has been with this as just a knife. So we have, in typical Protech fashion, aluminum scales that have been hard coat anodized black. I'm not sure if this bolster is also aluminum or not. It feels, I don't know, it's textured, so it's hard to say if it's the same material. But it feels nice, whatever it is. And then aluminum over here as well. This is my favorite type of pocket clip from Protech, except I prefer the shorter one, but it's the same style clip. This is just the longer version. I've harped on about this in a number of videos recently about Protech, but it is my favorite current clip in the game because they nest the clip tang down into the scale. If you can see that. I can't tell if it's focusing very well right now. The clip is nested down into the scale, and then the hardware, the screws are flush fit down into the tang, which is nested down into the scale of the knife. So it's a perfectly flat surface underneath there. There's no step up for the clip and step up for the screw head. It's just flush. Love that. And it's a loop over style deep carry clip, which comes all the way to the butt of the knife. That, in my opinion, is what a deep carry clip should do. Because if you take a deep carry style clip and you position it down the knife to where there's still knife sticking out of your pocket, it's not exactly carrying deep. Now, is it? It's become a pet peeve of mine that I've been observing more and more recently, and there are a number of offenders of that, and I'm not sure what the deal is. Some might claim it's because of hardware placement or lanyard holes or what. I don't know. In my opinion, if you're going to put a deep carry clip on a knife, do it like this. Make it go all the way to the end of the knife so that the knife actually carries deep in your pocket. It's what it's designed to do. So, that's a little side note. But yeah, I think these clips are titanium. Almost positive. It's possible it's steel, but I'm pretty sure it's titanium pocket clip, then aluminum scales. And blade steel on this guy, as with the bulk of Protechs currently in existence, is in 154 cm. It's finished quite well. We have this kind of satin flat, and the grinds, or the bevels, are stonewashed. And it's a really nice stonewashing. I actually like it quite a bit. There's a really handsome swedge along most of the length of the blade. It comes up to give you a bit of a flat spot, which I actually appreciate. There's a little bit more of a flat for my thumb here, whereas it starts to skinny out with that swedge if you push forward. Not that it's uncomfortable here, but nice good flat spot right there, and a saber grip is nice. So yeah, 154 cm, aluminum, maybe titanium on the clip, I'm not sure, and that's what we're talking about materials wise. So let's talk about how this knife has done just as a knife, because regardless of the cool opening deployment method, if it didn't function well as a knife, that would kind of be lost on me. One of the reasons why I never seem to hold on to gimmicky knives for very long is that most of the gimmicky knives I've experienced have not been very good actual knives. They're fun because of whatever it is that makes them gimmicky, but when it comes to actually performing as a knife that I can use for everyday carry, whatever a typical situation would be, whatever I expect of the average knife in my collection, if they kind of fall short of that, then after a while it's like, okay, it's cool that it does that fun, interesting, different thing, but it's not helping me. A good representation of that would be, I had a Microtech Ultratech Hellhound Bounty Hunter. It was the bounty hunter themed with the Hellhound blade. I've got a review on it if you look back. I loved that knife. It was so cool. I got it about the time that Mandalorian came out, which made it even more fun that I had the freaking bounty hunter knife. Like, the blade shape was one of the coolest looking that I think Microtech even makes. But as a cutting instrument, that knife was not very good. It had an edge on it, sure, and it was made with decent materials, and the action was super fun. The ergos were fair enough, but to actually cut things with it, it was kind of an expensive, weird, limited version of the knife, and I was a little hesitant to like beat on it. But also, the few things I did cut with it, it was pretty thick behind the edge. The blade stock thickness and how quick it got thick even after the edge it's kind of ground very abruptly, and wasn't the worst in the world. If somebody had that knife and it was their only knife and they needed to do all of their normal knife tasks with it, and they didn't know any better by having other knives that were much slicier with better geometry, etc., then they probably wouldn't even be aware they're missing out, and they'd get through life just fine. There's people who don't carry a knife at all and get through life just fine. But my point is, one of the reasons why it became easy for me to let go of that knife was because I just didn't find any real utility in it. So it's important to me that when a knife is fun because it's gimmicky, that if it would ultimately stay around, it has to also be functional. What's cool about this knife is, even if it was a regular button out the side auto, it would be a very good functional knife. I wouldn't be excited about it, if I'm being totally honest. The looks of this knife are not exciting to me. If I just look at this knife, surface level, don't consider how it opens, anything like that, I think this knife looks kind of boring. It's not exactly speaking to me. What makes it sizzle is the deployment method. But I can kind of interchange those things. I can have a really cool looking knife that's also very functional, and then it's fun. This being vanilla, but opening in such a fun way, still keeps it fun. So the fact that I find that it's functional, that it's usable, that it's ground fairly well, not the thinnest, sliciest thing I've ever experienced in my life, but a good, appropriate approach to an EDC blade that has a nice edge on it, has a realistic tip for most tasks that I would need to pierce into material with, has ergos that agree with my hands and I can actually get use out of this blade. It makes it very approachable and very usable. And so, I don't know, I was relieved from carrying and using this knife, I guess is what I'm really trying to get to. I was relieved to find that it was still a good knife. Beyond the gimmicky opening method, it's still functional and it still works. Might not look like the coolest thing in the world, but it's cool because of how it works, and it's functional enough to pass as a good EDC knife. So yeah, I guess that's kind of where I'm landing on it. The real question is, now that I've borrowed Kyle's, do I feel like I need one of these? It's a hard question. I don't see myself running out and immediately searching for one of these, but I wouldn't mind having one either. It's a cool knife because of what it does, as I've said 1,000 times already. It's functional. It would certainly be, it would fit within my collection. But I'd be lying if I said I'm as excited about it now, after playing with it a bunch, as I was before playing with it. There was a certain draw to it because I wanted to experience how it really did. And now that I've seen that, I still think it's cool, but it's like seeing the same magic trick 1,000 times in a row. It's not as exciting anymore. Like, if you're the magician on stage and you're doing the same trick for audience after audience after audience after audience, it's probably not as exciting for you at a certain point. If you're a comedian who's been telling the same jokes on stage for 10 years and you haven't changed your set, like, it's probably not going to be that funny to you personally anymore because you've said it too many times. So I think that's kind of happened here, where it's still very cool. Don't get me wrong. I still appreciate it, but I don't find that I think it's more fun to play with than my godson. It's more fun to show to people who don't know. But once I run out of people to show it to, then, like, the trick is over. You know, everybody knows now. So, I don't know. I'm a little bit torn on it. If I find one for a good deal and it's in a spec that I like, there's a high probability that I'll end up getting one because I do think it's cool. I like having things that are different. There's an enjoyment when you're in a hobby, not just knife collecting, but when you're deep into something, to find things that bring something new and different and unique to the table. There's a sea of knives available, and the fact that this is one of the only ones, I mean, there's this one and the other size of this one, the only ones I'm aware of with a deployment method like this, that makes it really cool because it's unique. So, I guess that's kind of where I stand on it. Very functional, ergos are good, carry's great. What's cool about it is what it does. And I don't know that that coolness will last forever, but I know it would never totally wear off. It'll always be unique, at the very least, whether it's exciting or not. I don't know. I guess we got a little abstract on this one. Some people who don't like my rambling have probably hated this video. And joke's on you if you got to this point and you're mad at me for talking this whole time. I get such a kick out of that. You're welcome. Anyway, this has been my full review of the Protech Magic Whiskers. A little bit of a different one, and it's a little bit of a different knife, to be fair. So, thanks again to Kyle for loaning it to me. I appreciated the chance to check it out. And yeah, I'll catch you guys on the next one.